Hello! In February 2022, Elden Ring was unleashed onto the world to massive critical acclaim. A mere 2 months later and this 10 out of 10 game is getting a fair bit of stick. The funny thing is, these issues have existed throughout the Soulsborne series. It's only now that people seem to be noticing or complaining about them. It reminds me of Yahtzee Croshaw talking about XCOM 2.
The risk-free copy-paste sequel carries risks of its own, for what was good and exciting when it was new sparks quickly and fades over time, whereas what's bad and annoying sticks around.
But as annoying, problematic and testing as these issues are, there is one that rises above them all.
Dodge!
Dodging is one of the fundamental actions in Elden Ring and all Soulsborne games. It is one way to avoid taking damage, along with blocking, parrying, staggering and a variety of spells. Unlike the other methods, dodging can be performed from the word go, works against pretty much all damage types, and doesn't require any specific stats or equipment. In fact, it actually works better without equipment. Dodging is almost certainly the most useful action in Elden Ring and its predecessors. To demonstrate, here I am fighting the Demon Prince in Dark Souls 3. The run wasn't going well, I was down to, how am I alive, health, and I'd used up all my health items. So I thought, sod it, let's see how far I can get before I die. So yeah, dodging can be very useful. So why is it an issue? If you watch someone playing Dark Souls, Bloodbourne or Elden Ring, you will at some point, regardless of their skill level, see the player do one of two things. Rolling around on the floor whilst the boss stares at them, or get smashed into the floor when they could easily have moved out of the way.
I pressed dodge.
Either of these can be down to the player, but in a lot of cases it is caused by the mechanics of how dodging works and how it's been set up by FromSoft, the people who make these games. When assigning actions to controls, FromSoft, for some reason, decided to assign dodge, one of the most fundamental actions in the game, to the same button as two other actions, dash and jump. This decision is absolutely insane. Because all three actions are on the same button, they need to be registered under different key functions and character states so they could be separated out. Dodge is registered to on release, press then release the button. Dash is registered to on press, press and hold the button. Jump is registered to on release, the same as dodge, but only whilst dashing, which means press and then hold, then release, then press, then release. In a game that requires frame-accurate responses from the player, jumping is convoluted as all blimey heck. But because of this differentiation, it initially seems like you will never mix up dodge and jump. That is, until you find yourself trying to dodge while dashing, only to watch your character swan dive to their death. To avoid this, you have to release the button, wait a moment or 12 whilst your character stops dashing, then tap the button to dodge, by which time you've been plastered across the pavement. To avoid this mix-up, you can separate the dodge and jump actions onto different buttons, but not in the way you'd think. Until Elden Ring, jumping in FromSoft games couldn't be performed without dashing first, so you'd think the two would be intrinsically linked, right? Nope. Jump is a separate action with its own slot on the keybinds menu. Dash and dodge, on the other hand, are hardwired together. This means even if you play a FromSoft game on a PC with mouse and keyboard and more buttons and there are actions to assign them to, you can't assign dodge to its own button. But surely if jump is on another button, dash and dodge being together is fine now, right? Unfortunately no, and for far worse reasons than mixing actions up. Let's go back to our pro gamers. The reason players are often caught out whilst trying to dodge attacks is because dodging has a delay, if only slight. A slight delay in a game that requires frame-accurate inputs from the player can mean death. Players who get caught out potentially did react to incoming threats, but the game itself was slow obeying the orders. To counteract this delay, players will try to dodge early, essentially making them predict incoming damage rather than reacting to it. These attempts at precognition lead players to roll in when nothing is happening or before a hit lands. Given that dodging only avoids damage for a fraction of its animation time, dodging early can get a player killed as easily as not dodging at all. Simply put, dodge too early, you die. Dodge on time, you die. Dodge just early enough, you survive. The reason for this delay is all that on-press and on-release business from earlier. The majority of actions in the game, such as blocking or attacks, and indeed most games, are on press, as this is the quickest way of delivering an input from a player, leading to much faster reaction times. Dodge being on release means there is extra time between the player reacting to something and the game reacting to something. It's the difference between your finger darting down and your finger darting down then up, a fraction of a second all included, but that's still double the time of on press. On top of this, the game has to decide what input the player is trying to give it between the 2 or possibly 3 actions assigned to that button, adding processing time. Again, a fraction of a second, but that's fractions on fractions, and how many do you need before it starts to affect the gameplay? Based on the amount of times people get killed trying to dodge, it appears the answer is not many. Now, despite this horrid interaction design, as you have probably seen in the clips in the background, dodging is still a usable mechanic. People can get used to almost anything, and the same goes for a badly implemented, slow to react anti-death maneuver. The problem with dodging is meh at best and slightly annoying at worst, if this was the only issue. This leads us back to the list of complaints regards Elden Ring. Complaints, I remind you, that can be applied to many games made by FromSoft. Take any one of these or many other complaints from the Bloodbourne series, then add the borked dodge mechanic, and suddenly, slightly annoying turns into bloody infuriating. FromSoft have been making the Bloodbourne series since 2009, 13 years at this point. They have had plenty of time to work out this is a problem and separate out dodge from dash. It's not like they couldn't. Elden Ring introduced a jump that didn't require dashing and had its own assigned button, so why couldn't they have done this with dodge? Based on what we've seen of Elden Ring, I would say it's to keep the games harder than they otherwise would be. Having to work around action delays or actions that might get mixed up with other actions can cause failures when otherwise players would succeed. On top of this, FromSoft can add in mechanics like delayed or snap attacks that players can't react to due to the delay and will have a very hard time pre-acting to. Honestly, this is FromSoft taking the piss. It's one thing to get good at a game that is difficult. It's another to push yourself through dodgy controls and meta combat mechanics when there is absolutely no need for either. You can't say that these games are good when dodging is this buggered. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it informative or entertaining, feel free to like, share and subscribe. If you think I'm a noob who needs to get good, feel free to leave a comment below. If you're feeling generous or want some handmade shiny tat, then feel free to visit my Etsy store, link in the description. Once again, thank you for watching.